Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Immigrant Podcast. I'm so glad and excited about today's conversation. I've got an amazing guest on the show. Most times a lot of people reach out to me talking about, I want to start a business in Canada. At the same time, I'm also considering buying a business in Canada. It's been a topic that a lot of people have been asking me in recent times. Then I found a brother. His name is Charles Kayitaba. Is originally from Congo. He's my guest today on the Thriving Immigrant Podcast. So if you are the type that you are looking to learn about buying business in Canada, want to learn how to fund business buying in Canada, this is one episode you don't want to miss. And I'm so excited to introduce my guest, Charles Kayitaba, to the Thriving Immigrant Podcast. Welcome, Charles.
Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you for the warm intro, and I'm excited to do this podcast, and hopefully we can add some value to your audience.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So let's just get straight to it. You, I assume you're an immigrant because you're black like me. So do you want to tell us about your immigration story?
I think it's you know similar to a lot of individuals. Naturally, I was born in Kinshasa, Congo. I'm the youngest. I'm the youngest of four. Two older brothers and an older sister. And I was born in '95, and during that time, there was obviously some turmoil going on with the Congolese slash Rwandese genocide, right? During that time period. And obviously, many refugees like myself at that time were looking for ways to get out of to get out of Congo at that time, just because obviously it was a lot of turbulence. Um, so whether that been a lot of my relatives moved to America, a lot of my relatives have a larger amount of my family moved to Belgium, right? Because we're French speaking. So I have a lot of family in Europe. But my mom decided to immigrate to Canada, mainly after the passing of my father, due to some of the genocidal conflicts that was going around that time. So my mom made a decision. My mom was a woman of faith, and she felt that Canada. She kept hearing about Canada being a safe space, a safe zone, right, to raise family and things of that nature. So at that time, my mom had I forget what model it was, but she had a Jeep that my dad had just bought her for being pregnant with me. And so what she did was she sold the Jeep to, at that time, a very wealthy billionaire, one of Congo's first billionaires. He started telecommunications in the Congo. So he was a confidant of my father. Sold the Jeep to him for cash, and that's what she used to apply for visas to get us to Canada. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much like kind of like the genesis of it. We connected with our family out in Ithaca, New York, who's been here for quite some time, and they mentioned that they knew a professor that they went to university with back home who was in Niagara Falls, Canada. And they just told them that we were coming, and next thing you know, we they greeted us when we landed to the country because obviously my mom, outside of us, being the kids, she had no friends, no family, no relatives, no nothing. So it was very just on the whim and pretty much just on faith, right? And believing that Canada was going to be a good place to start over again. And then we there's a Red Cross organization called the Chez Marie. It's like a sisterhood of nuns, and they take in immigrants around the world via the Red Cross. And they welcomed us into a refugee home in Fort Erie, Canada. Fort Erie is just north of Niagara Falls, along the border of Canada, USA.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where I grew up for many years, and that kind of started and that's when like the early parts of my childhood really started.
Oh, wow. You've got a very unique and powerful story, Charles. So your mom, so should I call you a second generation immigrant? Your mom moved to Canada. How many were you guys? You guys were four?
There's four of us in total. Four of us in total.
Your
But
mom and
at
three siblings.
It's three. Four,
Your mo
I have three. Yeah, my mom
okay,
and including me four. So, but I have three older siblings. You got it.
okay. So how old were you when you moved to Canada?
I was very young. I was just pushing maybe 1 year old. Just one.
Okay. So technically, this story you were told, you probably don't have any memory of this story.
This is all. This is all stories that I hear from uncles and my mom and my siblings.
Hmm. Wow, that must have been tough. So your mom is a powerful woman. She deserves a lot of flowers. I hope
Yeah,
you
definitely.
celebrate her every day because she must have gone through a lot.
She definitely she definitely sacrificed a lot for us to be here and to be in the positions that we are 100%. And you know uh, there's nothing you can do except put your belief back in faith. Sometimes you go through life, at least some individuals, not all individuals, but even myself, you question um if there is a God in the world, and from whatever religious background you are, whether you be Catholic, Christian, Muslim, Hindi, or whoever, it doesn't
Mm.
matter, right? But sometimes you realize that there has to be, for a woman like that to be just over 40 years old to make that type of trip and restart her life over again when the majority, if not all of her life, she spent in Congo, to completely redirect, change, raise a family, not speak the language, and adapt a completely different lifestyle, and not have any support, no support system. You really can't leave it up to no one but God, right?
Yeah, yeah. Your story is the story of, can we call it grass to grace? Because you must have gone through a lot. How did it feel growing up in Canada without a dad at that time for you guys as a
Mhm.
large family?
I'll be honest, because obviously I was very young, and I didn't, and my father passed away before I was born. Um, it, I didn't realize it until later years,
Yeah.
because I normalized it.
You were used to
I
not having a dad.
correct.
You just didn't know that there was a gap.
Correct,
Mm,
right? So I would be lying to say if it really had any sorry, obviously it has effects, but consciously I was not aware of those effects because I was too young to
yeah.
really understand the impact of that. But naturally, looking back on it now as an adult and as a grown man, right? I can now see, wow, the effects of, what that entails and all the things that happen, right? So obviously we grew up in less than fortunate circumstances,
Hmm.
financially. We weren't up to par, right? um you know Leaning on a lot of the government services that Canada offered at that time for new
Yeah.
immigrants coming in refugee status, subsidized housing for the majority of for pretty much all of my childhood and into high school, right? Until we were actually able to save up money between the family and actually buy our first property, right? But you learn to be resourceful, right? And the things that really mattered, like family, like faith. My mom really prioritized education, right, within the family and sticking together. And that's kind of what allowed us to move through life and get where and build the foundations and the disciplines and the practices and the characters that you need to really be successful in life, in business, and in any other aspect.
Inspiring, inspiring. This is a very powerful story because I've listened to numerous stories about immigrants and how they moved to Canada and all that, but this is the first time I'm hearing this kind of story. It's very unique and powerful. Okay, so let's get straight into the major conversation for the day. You've done so
Yes,
well for
sir.
yourself. You should be proud of yourself looking at what you've done, what you've gone through, getting to this point in life. And I'm really proud of you. So you are you're a mortgage expert. My first question would be, why did you choose the specialty that you chose? Like, I know you are into commercial loans, helping
Mhm.
businesses to secure loans for those that want to expand or buy businesses. Why did you choose that path?
Funny enough, I didn't, this was not my background, right?
Okay, tell
So,
me.
yeah. So I've done a complete 180 in my career. So I cannot sit here and lie and be like I've always been in finance and because that's what mortgages are, right? I have always been in the finance industry. I made the switch into finance actually in 2021. 2020, yeah, 2020, excuse me, pre-pandemic. All right. My professional background and where I have my degree in a Bachelor of Science is kinesiology, so fitness, right? Health medicine was kind of like my area of expertise. Um, I decided I thought I was going to do. I went out and I got accepted to do a postgraduate program for my master's at Sheridan College because I thought I wanted to be an athletic therapist. That was the goal. I come from a fitness background, so I'm like, hey, do you know what? I'm not going to go professional playing sports. So the best thing is let me train the athletes, let me rehabilitate them, right? The next best thing.
Right.
So I got into Sheridan College. So that's why I moved from Niagara when I graduated from Brock University, and I moved to Mississauga because Sheridan College is in Brampton. So I stayed with my sister, and staying with my sister, I got into school and I was working at the same time. To fast forward, essentially, when I got into the program in my postgraduate program, I realized this is not going to be able to earn the income that I want to to live the life that I want selfishly,
Hmm.
right? So I'm looking at these individuals who I'm working with, people within the MLSC. I'm working with professors who have a background and work with professional sports teams from NFL teams, NBA teams, Major League Baseball teams, right? Even MLS teams. And their salaries didn't make any sense to me because they're away for 6 months of the year traveling with the team and things of that nature, but they might be making a decent six-figure salary, maybe 90K, 100K. And at that time, I'm like, man, these are individuals at the pinnacle of the career. Even when I graduate, I'm probably still 10 to 15 years removed landing one of these positions, right? That doesn't make any sense to me. So that was about 6 months within the first school year. So call it the end of the first semester. I made a decision that I'm going to finish the year, but I don't think I'm going to return. I'm going to figure out something else that's going to, and that I think is going to yield the return that I want. That way, I can actually live the life that I deem to be suitable for myself and my family. At that point in time, I reconnected with an old friend of mine named Nathaniel Gardner. Shout out to Nathaniel Gardner. He was a basketball player at Brock University who turned he worked at I believe it's either Sun Life or Manulife, one of the big insurance companies downtown, and he held a very comfortable corporate job
Hmm.
um, as a financial analyst. And he was next to be in a senior position at a very young age, so he was already making six figures for many years post university. He was about 25, 26 at the time. I was about 21. And he was managing my finances, teaching me about, saving, investments, just basic stuff. And I started getting a knack for finance and money. You know what's funny? Growing up growing up without money or the accessibility to have money to do the things you really want to do, having money was something I always valued,
Hmm.
right? So going through high school, I always worked. Going to university, I worked and I put myself through university, and I always had a good amount of savings, right? I was
Hmm.
always a frugal individual and I had a good amount of savings. Into my postgrad, I was always working because, there's something to be said. I think not for everyone, but at least for myself, growing up without money, my one thing I always valued, maybe even too much, was always being able to have money to help out my mom,
Yeah.
to pay this, to pay certain things, to get the things I want to get, right? And that's what I can say really fueled a lot of my early entrepreneurial, days and ventures. But to keep along with the story, my I was really seeking for that education. He was probably my first mentor, if you want to call it that. Um, he invited me to a retirement party at 26 years old. Um, and he was leaving his corporate job. I'm like, man, what's going on here? This doesn't make any sense. Like, how are you retiring at 26? That's insane. But he was able to amass enough rental properties. His rental real estate portfolio was large enough that he felt comfortable to live off his cash flow,
Hmm.
right? And from that, he's like, hey, I'm going to leave corporate and now I'm going to focus all my attention on real estate to keep expanding my real estate portfolio, right? I'm like, I'm in the wrong game. I gotta learn this,
You have to
right?
learn this.
I have to learn this, man. And I'm the type of person like when I'm passionate about something, I want to do something, I'm all in. I will stop what I'm doing and I'll dedicate all my time and energy just to learn that, right? And so that's what I did. Um, the end of the school year finished. I made a decision I wasn't going to go back, right, to Sheridan College to complete my post grad. And the gym I was working at that time, Orange Theory Fitness, it's a boutique fitness studio in Ontario. There's a few of them even in Ottawa. I started working in the gym full time. So I started managing, so I became one of the fitness managers for the gym. All right. And then that's where I would say a lot of my business management experience was
Came
learned,
from.
right? Because I was actively not just training staff, onboarding staff, hiring, how to grow a team, how to sell memberships, how to lead sales teams in sale meetings to hit monthly and quarterly targets. Collaborating with the owner in terms of how to open and launch studios, right?
Mm.
And revenue, net revenue, all of these different things. Even though I didn't go to business school, I would treat that as my business school, right? And this is where now a lot of my business knowledge came into place and my knack for entrepreneurship. This is where the bug started. Uh, uh, um, um, got this is where I really started to get that quench, right? And I just wanted more. So while I was managing the fitness studio, I was actually investing some of my money, about 10 to 15% of my annual salary, with Nathaniel Gardner for private lending, real estate projects, things of this nature, right? We had a project we did out in Chatham. It was a six unit building in Chatham that he was able to purchase for about 530,000, which is obviously is amazing, but that just shows how much real estate has gone up since then. Um, he I lent money privately on the deal. He taught me how to do the cash for keys to get the tenants out. He taught me how to do strategic renovations, how to hire new tenants. I did all of this stuff for free because I just simply wanted to learn,
Mm.
right? And again, just immerse myself within the real estate investing community, how to speak with contractors, how to hire contractors, how to manage tenants, right? Again, that was my schooling, right? Next thing you know, within I believe it was about 7 months, we were able to renovate the whole building, all right, with funds that were raised by investors and get new tenants in. With the new valuation, the building was worth, I believe, it appraised for about 850. So we were able to refinance and take out all the money, pay back investors, and also I got my return back, which was a large percentage, right?
Awesome.
And when that check came in my hand, I'm like, this is
Oh,
this
wow.
is how this
This
is how
is
it's
it.
done.
This is how it's
This is how,
done.
right? And now he owned the building free and clear, and he didn't actually have to put any money into it. He raised all the money,
Hmm.
right? At that point in time, I'm like, do you know what? Real estate real estate is my vehicle, right? Um, Not because I love real estate per se,
Okay.
right? But it was the vehicle that I think will get me to where I wanted to, right?
Awesome. Awesome.
So I wrote my mortgage license
Okay.
with Nathaniel. I wrote my mortgage license in 2020 through my contacts at the gym, Orange Theory Fitness, because it's a higher net worth membership and it's a boutique studio. There's individuals there who have higher net worth, larger corporate profiles, doctors, lawyers, things like that. I
Hmm.
was able to get one of my colleagues at the time, who's not actually my business partner, referred me to a brokerage where I met my principal broker and business partner, Amin Sodi, right? I joined that brokerage and that's how I grew my mortgage business and that's how I got into finance.
Awesome. Beautiful story. Okay. You sound like someone that is very driven. I love your story. So the next question I'm going to ask you is, you've been doing this for, let's say, 4 years actively. What do you think are the biggest challenges that business owners face when trying to secure commercial loans? Because I understand that commercial loan is different from maybe personal loan. So
Yeah.
what are the biggest challenges that businesses face when trying to secure commercial loans, whether an existing business or a new business owner that is trying to buy an existing business?
I think what it is miseducation. That's the biggest thing, right? I think a lot of individuals when trying to acquire a loan to purchase a business, right? People need to understand the steps that are involved to do that and what the
Okay.
banks are looking at, right? So not naturally so it's very difficult, right? To purchase a business if you have no background or experience in that industry that you're trying to buy, right? And
Mm,
then on top of that, the banks are looking at your overall profile, net worth, you know, how much funds are available to you in order to manage the business, to float the business for the next couple of months until you're able to turn a profit, right? So these are things that are very important. That I think a lot of people they unfortunately read and see a lot of misinformation on TikTok and Instagram, which is typically like I feel like American-based content or American-based information, where it's
mm,
like zero down buying a business or apply for this line of credit and this credit card and buy business with, and that's your down payment. Unfortunately, a lot of those things don't work here in Canada, because just from a credit standpoint, Canada is nowhere close to America,
right.
right? We're not even on the same ballpark. We're so much smaller, commercially, and we're not commercially aggressive whatsoever, right? And unfortunately, a lot of the finance is monopolized in Canada. the
Right.
majority of us, the majority of us bank with all the same five banks, right? So at least 99% of people. And then you have a few of the credit unions that may
Yeah.
take some of the business. But if we're being honest, five banks control probably easily over 95% of the market share when it comes to finance and lending in Canada. So that
Mm,
means then their products and services really aren't going to very far off from one another, right? So and that's the biggest difference. So there is I would say miseducation to answer your question.
okay. Okay. That's a good one. So no, now let me let you break it into steps. So if someone is interested in buying a business right now, maybe someone listening to me right now and is thinking of buying a business, what are the first three things or first five things that you think the person should put in place before thinking of buying a business at all?
Uh, yeah, I think first thing is why. Why do you want to buy this business? Because business is a sport. It's competitive, right? So what moat, what competitive edge do you have that you're going to be able to buy this business, right? And make it successful and turn a profit, right? Because at the end of the day, you're not just buying a business just to buy a business. You're buying a business to make money, right?
Hmm.
And if that business is not making money or it's something wrong with it, what skill sets, what professional practices that you have, you know, that would allow this business to increase in value and thus allowing you to make more money. I always feel like that's the main thing right there, right? And then from there we get into some of the ancillary details like what's your credit score like? Do you own any property, right? Are you liquidated? Do you have liquid capacity, right? To inject money in this business, right? And to float it for at least a couple of months until you start seeing some sort of return. Because most businesses, it may not, you may be injecting a lot of capital in the beginning, right? To get it off the ground, advertising, marketing, payroll, things like that, right? So it's just understanding that as well, and making sure those things are in place, and then we can go into the different type of financing and loan programs available to you.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Right. So we've been talking for the past almost 30 minutes. It's been a very insightful conversation. I was going to ask you, still on commercial loans,
Yep.
do you have any story, any success story right now, or any story that makes you proud of how you walked someone through the entire process, helped them in securing loans, and right now they're doing amazingly well? And do you have an idea of the one of the most thriving industries or sectors that someone can be looking into if someone is trying to buy a business in Canada? Is it restaurant? Is it maybe laundromat? Is it maybe mechanic shop or something? So do you have an idea of any? It looks like I'm asking you so many questions in one. But first of
Mhm.
all, the first one is any success story that comes to your head right now, and any industry or sector that you would recommend for someone trying to buy a business in Canada.
Yeah. So first off, success story, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So no, right now, I would say the one story I love the most is a young couple from Iraq. They purchased a trade secrets. Um, they had a decent amount of net worth, all right. But it was a lot of it was help from family and friends. So what happened was his fiance, when she moved to Canada in 2022, right?
Okay.
Her first job was working at Trade Secrets. So Trade Secrets is like almost like a makeup brand, a makeup store, right? Where you can buy the different, lipsticks, cover ups, things like that for female beauty aesthetics, right? Um, so she worked there for about a year and a half, and she made her way up to store manager, and she built a very good relationship with the owner. The owner
Hmm.
was pregnant with her second child and wanted to step away from the business just because it was too strenuous, right? She made an offer, and the owner was willing to sell her the business at a discount, right? Because she knows that she's been in the business for a long time, and she knows she'll take good care of it, right? That was see that is almost like a story where it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
This lady has this woman, I should say, has experience in the business. She works at the store already, right? She made her way up to manager, store manager, and now she's simply taking the business off the hands of the current owner, but she already knows how to operate the business full circle without the owner, right? See, that's a very easy business plan to construct and sell to the eyes of the banks. Where we come into play here was unfortunately, credit and net worth was a little bit difficult, but this is
Hmm.
where the storytelling comes into place, right?
Hmm.
And being able to construct a business plan around her professional expertise already to show the banks this is someone who will be able to operate this business, even though maybe her net worth and credit may not be up to par, right? And thus we were able to get about 70% loan to value against the purchase. So they just brought about 30% down payment to the table, and we were able to get that done for them. And now they're a young couple. Husband's a successful realtor. She owns and operates the store. And they're really starting to take over, and take control of their careers at a very, very young age that will put them ahead of the game, 5, 10 years down the line.
Profound. I have a follow-up question to that before you answer my next question. And that
Mhm.
is for buying businesses, is there a minimum requirement for down payment, like a percentage that must be contributed towards the business before the bank or the banks can step in to borrow you maybe the balance?
Yeah, I would say this. It depends on the industry.
Okay.
The strength of the industry will determine how much the banks will give you from a loan to value standpoint. So for the
Hmm.
for the industry for the individuals listening, just so if they don't know what loan to value is simply like the value of the business and the ratio in terms of how much of the loan the bank will provide against that value on a percentage basis. So 70%, 80%, 90%, whatever, right? So depending on the industry, the banks will give you a higher or lower loan to value. Example, hospitality,
Okay.
you're getting about 70% loan to value, which is pretty low. 68, 70% loan to value. Reason being, look what hospitality did over the last couple of years. They was really impacted by COVID, right?
Yeah.
Right. But then look at, let's say, anything to do with dental clinics or physicians, or veterinarians. Um, these type of businesses don't go out of business.
Hmm.
If anything, they got busier over COVID, right? So banks and the client profile, someone who's a dentist, their client profile in terms of future projection is very strong. Most dentists live well off. Most, not all, but most.
Most, yeah,
Fam- most family doctors have a pretty good standard of living,
right.
right? Veterinarians as well. So the banks, because of that industry, and they understand that there's very little to no turnover,
Hmm.
right? They will give someone who's buying a dentistry clinic or a physician's office, they would give that individual a much higher loan to value. I've seen up to 90, 95% loan to value. Very
Wow.
little out of pocket because of the strength of that industry.
I see.
Yes, sir.
Makes sense. Okay. So the interest rates that they offer, is it the same as the interest rate for personal mortgage, or is there a special interest that they offer for commercial loans?
Yeah, no, commercial loans are naturally so commercial business, right? Because
Yeah.
when we say commercial, sometimes we can think of real estate as well, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So commercial businesses at this
For sure.
for this one.
So commercial loans are more expensive, right? Because understand that the bank isn't putting anything for collateral, right?
Hmm.
So there is no collateral. It's technically unsecured debt. Now they would ask for a personal guarantee at a
Okay.
certain percentage, but they're not collateralizing that loan with your house. They're not putting a lien against your house or anything like that, right?
Yeah, correct.
So that's why their interest rate's a little bit higher because of
Hmm.
security. Whereas in real estate, well, it's very easy. The bank puts a loan against the house. So if you don't pay your mortgage, what happens? They take your house, they sell it, and then they make their money back. It's not the same thing for commercial business loans, right? God forbid you claim bankruptcy or you're not able to make your business payments, right? How does the bank recoup their funds? They can't.
Valid. Yeah, that's a valid concern. I see. Okay, makes sense. So back to my previous thank you. Thank you. Loving this so far. So back to my
Mhm.
previous question. Are there any sectors or industries you've talked about um healthcare, like dental clinics and all that? But I don't think everyone can play in that space. So if you're not a professional in that space, it might be difficult for you to just wake up and say, you know
Yeah.
what, you want to buy a dental clinic. So are there any other sectors that are lucrative and you would recommend for an average person who is just driven and want to buy a business?
Excuse me, brother. Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think boring businesses is a good place to start. So, for example, home healthcare is something that's on the rise. Still within the healthcare sector, much lower barrier of entry, right? But home healthcare is definitely on the rise because of the baby boomer population that's heading into retirement, right? And
Correct.
we don't have enough facilities and clinics and infrastructure to take care
Take
of
care
them,
of them.
right? So these home healthcare businesses that can see is going to be very, very popular and a great opportunity to earn money within that business if you're a first mover, if you get in, because I think it will be quite saturated within 5 to 10 years. But those who are
Yeah.
getting in now, I think will be able to, do a good job and potentially even get an early exit and be bought out by a larger conglomerate or something like that, right?
Mm,
So still within the healthcare. So home healthcare is one. I personally like anything to do with blue collar work, right? So if you're a skilled laborer,
mm.
plumber, electrician, things like this, um, I would highly, highly, highly suggest seeing if you can turn either go into business for yourself or buy an already existing plumbing company, right? Um, that could be an excellent move. So things like that is where I would say where we can say the lowest barrier of entry, right? And still be able to turn a good profit.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Any experience with restaurant industry?
Yeah, we do a lot of restaurants, a lot of restaurants. But
Okay.
the restaurant business is a very tough business. Small margins,
Mm-hmm.
um, small margins, and requires you to be there,
Every
actively
time.
present,
Yeah.
right? So can restaurants, a good restaurant can make you so much money, right? But a bad restaurant can also make you lose a lot of money too,
Mm.
right? So I'm not I'm if you're someone who's interested in hospitality and wants to get into the restaurant business, I would say not a problem, right? But I think there does need to be a certain passion for food and getting into it, right?
Right. Thank you, Charles. This has been a very insightful conversation. Is there something you would advise immigrants generally that are trying to, because you've gone through a lot in life, you've seen it, not that you've seen it all, but is there any advice you give to someone trying to break even and looking at succeeding, not just in business, but in life, whether as a career professional or as a business owner?
Yeah, I would say the lesson that I'm learning the most is um there's nothing that beats a consistent 9 to 5. That is the best wealth builder you can have.
Hmm.
If you're an individual who's um you come from back home, because back home we have so many intelligent scholars and individuals. If you're able to come to Canada and get a solid 9 to 5 within your industry that you're interested in, use that and scale up corporately, right? Because that's going to be now that steady income is going to give you the cash flow that you need. Live, I would say, modestly, and then whatever excess funds that you have, use that to network, use that to get into different rooms, right? Understand the lay of your land, the lay of the land, educate yourself on different industries, and figure out how you can make your mark in entrepreneurship or in some sort of side hustle, and focus to scale that, right? Um, because a lot of the issue that I find or see is a lot of individuals leave or quit their jobs too early without having a real business or product to sell.
That's very powerful. Right. That's very powerful. I love how you laid emphasis on the 9 to 5 because for some reasons I've been getting some conversations around, I don't know if you're a Gen Z, but Gen Zs don't believe in 9 to 5. Like I just can't wait for my freedom. And I really agree with you on the note that that 9 to 5 can be a very powerful asset. And if you know what you're doing, eventually you might end up starting your business, but not just too early. And that makes sense,
Mm.
especially in a country like Canada where bills accumulate like every day. Okay, thank you. I love that advice. So do you accept clients and how can people contact you?
Yeah, I'm very active on Instagram, right? As you
Okay.
can see. You can follow me at CK at underscore CK the broker, right? It's probably the best and easiest way to get in contact with me. Or honestly via email, just shoot me an email and I probably will get back to you within 24 hours. But those two things are probably the easiest and best way to get in contact with me.
Okay. Thank you, Charles. We've had a wonderful time with you today, educating. In fact, I've learned a lot and I can't wait to I can't wait to start implementing all these things that you've talked about. And I can't wait to even have a personal conversation with you and see maybe I can buy some boring businesses in my neighborhood.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely,
Okay.
brother.
Any last word for the listener?
No, that's it. Thank you, Paul. I would say for you, first and foremost, man, thank you so much for having me on your podcast and introducing me to your network. It's big, man. Just stuff like this is important to have these type of conversations and put them out into the world and into the community because I think it's very powerful when you're able to see individuals that look like yourself in different positions, right? Different spotlights, because then you can be almost I don't want to say a beacon of hope, but a belief that like it is possible, like you can be successful in entrepreneurship and business if you deem that's what you want to do, right? And just being able to connect with one another and hopefully bridge the gap of ignorance to knowledge, right? That way we can make informed decisions, and do what's good for the community.
Absolutely. And you are welcome. Thank you, Charles, for coming. Thank you everyone for tuning in today. If you've not subscribed to my channel, please do so you can get more and learn more about insightful conversations like this. Till I come your way again, have a wonderful day.